It's the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. It is Thursday, June the 8th. Bob Seger's Night Moves, a song that reminds me sometimes it's better not to know what's moving around at night in your backyard. My wife and I got like those Ring cameras at the house just like a year ago. Like we waited. Everybody I knew already had cameras, security cameras at the doors, and some even inside the house in rooms, nanny cams, whatever. We've never had any of that crap. And as soon as we got them, I realized I was happier not knowing what was going on outside my house once the lights went down. Similarly, we got motion lights. It was just a package and it was a deal, and we were like, yeah, let's upgrade the system. Worst decision I ever made. You're sitting at night, you're watching a movie, and all of a sudden you notice your backyard light just came on, motion light.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Why did I do this to myself?
Right.
I didn't care if raccoons or vagrants were in my yard before, and now I'm jumping up and I'm like, grab the dog. Someone's out there, and there's never anybody out there.
Yeah.
And then when those cameras, you get these notifications, there's someone at your front door. And like, I guess I'm sure like everybody can relate. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. You find yourself going down the rabbit hole of seeing everybody that walked past your house in a day. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? I used to enjoy my life, and now I'm suddenly walking down the damn sidewalk. I had to change the settings, so you had to be actually at my door before I'd get the notification. But it's just crazy. But that said, security cameras, I mean, if they give you peace of mind, great. But every now and again, you find out something that's kind of sweet. And this is a great story that we just came across. A woman in Louisiana was checking her home security footage last month, and she saw a kid run into her garage one day. She left her garage door open, and a boy ran in. He didn't take anything. Like, he rode his bike up the driveway, hopped off, runs into her garage to hug her dog.
Oh, that's so sweet.
She had a little black lab named Duchess, and Duchess was in the garage, and this little boy runs in, hugs the dog, runs out, and takes off. And so she was like, well, I wonder who this little boy is. And she asked around, and somebody said, oh, it's that 9-year-old kid down the street. And long story short, the little boy didn't want to be caught because his mom has told him, you're not allowed to go on other people's property. So he knew he was breaking his own family's rules. Plus, he was intruding.
Yeah.
But the fact is, this little boy lost his own dog just a few months ago.
What in the hell? You're going to make me cry in my car, man.
Cry.
And so Zep,
can't.
as you start snotting all over yourself, she found out who the kid was, and she said, hey, you know what? We have an electric fence. You can come over anytime and even take him out of the garage. He's not going to leave the yard. And so now this boy named Josh, he's hanging out a little bit more with Duchess. It's a really nice story. So that's like, I mean, think about that. That boy's life has now been, he's got this great thing thanks to a security camera. That's really sweet. So that's like, I'm like, why can't that happen to me in my security camera? And then, but see, you got to have the yang if you want the yin. If you want the salt, you got to take the pepper, baby.
Now what?
So here's another story of a security camera. All this from the same day. A woman in Canada, she captured some footage in one of her trail cams. She lives in the woods, and she's got some cameras set up, and she just loves to catch the wildlife at night.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw a badger. Hey, I saw a badger and a coyote, and they were telling jokes. Whatever she's going to, she's excited to see things. She noticed one day there was a deer carcass back in her property, and she thought, well, I'm definitely going to put these cameras on that because other animals will come, and I want to see what they do. There's a dead deer. I just want to see what that brings on. So she pointed her cameras toward the deer, and that night went to sleep, got up the next day, checked her security camera. I'm not making this up. 2 scantily clad women showed up in the dark, in pitch black, and knelt down and apparently had some sort of a ritual around this deer carcass. And it looked like they were picking up parts of the deer and eating it.
What? No.
And she has the footage.
Sick.
2 women like in a little teddies, and then one of them's topless, and they look like they're wearing long wigs, but they are kneeling and doing a whole thing around the deer carcass. And I thought, so on the one hand, you got a little Josh running in to hug a black lab because he lost his dog, and that's real sweet. And on the other hand, you got the witches coven and the deer carcass.
I don't know which one is sweeter, to be honest.
Well,
with you.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, ashes to ashes type of thing. Let's get the best out. Let's get what we can out of this carcass.
Maybe the little boy at some point will start devouring the dog, and there'll be a tie-in.
See, this could very well be the thing. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, like, I got a couple of strange things, I guess, on my security cameras. I've never gotten anything nearly as sweet as someone trying to hug my dog, and I've definitely gotten nothing nearly as weird as the Coven witch carcass ceremony in the middle of the night. But I'm fascinated by this, and it just dawned on me, has anybody ever seen anything really bizarre or unexpected on their security cameras? I would love to hear from you if you have.
Hard to beat those two. The naked witches.
It's the ultimate yin and yang.
It is the ultimate. I mean, we really, fired across the spectrum there, didn't we? I'm looking at the pictures now. That's weird. First of all, it's unhealthy. I really hope they are witches. Otherwise, they're going to get some botulism. They're going to get a bellyache out of that. Consuming a dead deer car. What are the odds that you're out in the middle of nowhere and a couple of screwballs?
Mm-hmm. What are the odds that this is a prank? You have to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Or you don't want to share that picture, too, if they're really a satanic cult.
Yeah, really.
They're going to come back.
They're going to come back and get you.
Well, they don't look too threatening.
Oh, and by the way, hey, that just reminded me, later in the show today, we're going to have a guest named Kurt Kubicek, and he's the host of a podcast that I listened to yesterday about a true satanic cult in South Africa, led by a woman. They call her the Charles Manson of South Africa. So, hey, it's all happening out there, ladies and gentlemen. There's true crime everywhere you turn, and then apparently there's witches in Canada and beautiful dogs getting hugs in Florida and everything in between.
There are witches everywhere.
There are witches everywhere, Candace. You said in a witchy voice. You and your Stevie Nicks coven. So I did have. So when we got our cameras, again, nothing anywhere near as great as either of these two stories, but we did catch someone egging a car, and then oddly enough, we didn't get a face. We couldn't determine because two people did something in our yard about 3 months after we got these cameras. And it's funny because I'd forgotten this even happened. I wake up one morning, I open the front door to let the dog out, and across my front yard, there's 12 or 14 wooden skewers with hot dogs on them sticking up out of the grass.
What? That's really...
And the footlongs. On giant wooden skewers.
Okay, that's just about as weird as the witches.
Thank you. And I had that morning, I hadn't had coffee yet, and I'm like, what in the hell am I looking at? And I was so bewildered by it. And I thought to myself, is this are they poisoned? Is someone trying to get my dog? Did Chauncey take a dump in someone's yard and this is payback? I literally went right there. And I thought about it, and when Rosemary came down later, I was like, look at this. And she goes, well, look at the cameras. I was like, oh, my God, we have the cameras, of course, the footage. And what happened was somebody walked right up to the front door with their face covered and stood in front of the camera. And a second person, and when that person at the front door turned to leave, we saw the second person who had administered the hot dog skewer thing. They jumped into a car and left. And the car was parked across the street. It's like they knew how to avoid detection.
It's art.
And this was right after somebody had egged my son's car, and we knew who that was. So of course I accused the same person of this, and they said, no, I didn't do that. And I'm like, well, we busted you for the egging of the car. Obviously you did this too. Months later, you know what we found out? Just a totally harmless prank from a girl that my son, just a buddy of my kids, and there had been apparently a TikTok craze where people were putting hot dogs on skewers, and they just wanted to do that to him. And I was like, yeah, he wasn't here. He was away for the week, and I'm left to deal with these weird hot dogs. Anyway, that's the craziest thing I found. Is no harm done ultimately.
Let Chauncey deal with those hot dogs. He knows what to do with them.
Yeah, he was. Trust me, he was. He still gives me that look like you wouldn't let me just have those hot dogs. Really? You thought they were poisoned? What's wrong with you?
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of good stories out there. Ken Woodbury, I'm talking to you this morning. I don't want to tell your story, but I might when we get back to this later. But yeah, give us a call because so many people, because of the porch pirates now, and they're so easy to install and readily available and affordable. I'm talking about doorbell cams. Has anything showed up on yours? Guys out there and gals that like to hunt your trail cams. I've got a weird trail cam story. Well, come on back to this. Sometime after Mike Evans, maybe about 7 o'clock, 651-989-ROCK is the Maple Grove Lock and Safe Talk and text line. And we do have Mike Evans coming at us with a Hollywood report here at 6:30. Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
Let's go to a man long rumored to be one of the many bastard sons of Cecil B. DeMille, Mike Evans with the Hollywood report. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, good morning. Today is
Best friends forever. Is that me and you yet, or we need more time?
BFF Day? It's every day for you and me, brother.
Come on, man. I knew that. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I got some love nuggets for you. So, look, man, I'm so happy to report this. For years and years, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California, there were constant stories that he was sexually harassing and groping women.
Yep.
Well, finally, after decades of denials, Arnold has admitted those stories were true and has apologized. So all of these decades, all of these years, I've been calling him the Gropinator.
Okay.
Finally confirmed.
Well, fair enough.
Finally confirmed. How about a really neat Hollywood love story?
Okay.
So, when Matt Damon was shooting Bourne franchise in Miami 22 years ago, he stopped by a local bar after filming for a little beverage, have a drink, and he became friends with a single divorced female bartender named Luciana Bariso.
Okay.
They started dating. They got married. Matt Damon adopted her daughter from another marriage.
Okay.
They now have 3 daughters of their own and are living happily ever after.
Isn't that nice?
It's a very cool story.
Wow.
I love it.
Let's see, on the grand scale of who played life better, Matt or Ben? I think Matt. I think Matt's had the better path.
I agree.
Call me
totally
crazy.
agree. A different Hollywood love story. The DNA test Al Pacino demanded are in, and Al is the father
Oh, that's great news.
of the 29-year-old pregnant girlfriend's fetus. Again, that's Hollywood love style.
By the way, how is that out? Who know? Why do we even know that? What's your source? How do these stories get out, Mike? I've always wondered.
Well, this story was pretty open because he said he wanted a DNA test, and that's how you know.
But I mean, who's leaking the results? Her publicist, his publicist.
He didn't talk to her a couple of days. Now they're back together, hugging and kissing. So that's sort of just a story there. Boy, this isn't good. There are rumors of more casting couch situations out there.
Oh boy.
Involving smaller studios and production companies. And this week, Elle Fanning is telling stories that she lost, when she was 16 years old, she lost some roles because she wouldn't sleep with the director. 16 years old.
Wow. Elle Fanning, she's like a star already. I mean, it's incredible.
Amazing. Odds and ends. The most incredible house you will ever see. I guarantee it. It's called the Wave House in Malibu. It sits right on the beach in Malibu. It looks like a 30-foot wave, the actual house. One of a kind, designed in 1950, built in 1963, 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, 6,200 square feet.
Good God.
Sits on just a little under an acre of land. Asking price $50 million. It was formerly owned by Rod Stewart. And Rod Stewart, by the way, this week put up his $70 million Beverly Park castle for sale. $70 million.
Do you want to go halvesies on the castle with me, Mike?
Come
on, let's do it.
I'll put in a couple $100. I'll try to help out a little bit.
70 mil. Wow.
$70 million.
Well done, Rod.
You might remember that Hollywood memorabilia auction I told you about on Monday. Well, it's now over, and the highest item sold was the actual really nice bar from the Cheers TV show. Starting bid was $288,000. That thing sold for $675,000. Wow.
Yeah, that checks out.
It'd be nice sitting in your man cave, though. I mean, you know.
Hell yeah, it would be.
And what is up with Jennifer Aniston? She says she's kind of burnt out, she's broke, and she started these workout videos for sale. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Jennifer's only working on one movie. She plays the real-life Denise White, probably the most powerful woman in sports executive female. And as far as being broke, I mean, Steve, Jennifer Aniston is worth $400 million.
Yeah, no, she's, I mean, broke on the inside, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Just saying.
What the
I mean,
heck?
hey, I love Jen.
I hear you.
High maintenance.
You know, she's taking kicks like the rest of us to the shins in life.
Once in a while. It happens to all of us. And from home, a little nugget, Kilauea back in Hawaii is erupted again, and some lava is moving towards some villages. So we'll have to keep a watch on that.
You know, I'll be honest, when you said Kilauea, I thought you were going to talk about those orcas in Spain kicking boats over, but that's a whole different Kilauea.
movie reviews tomorrow. Talk to you then, my best friend forever, Steve. See ya.
All right, Mike. Thank you very much. The Mike Evans Hollywood Report. You can tell me all you want about a house in Hawaii for $50 million, and I'm glad that Sir Rod Stewart's going to put up his castle in Beverly Hills for $70 million. Screw that. $5.5 million, a paltry $5.5 million, can get you the Brady Bunch house in Studio City, California.
That's right.
Wow.
The Brady Bunch house is for sale. Now, in 2002, we moved, my wife and I, with son and soon-to-be daughter, moved to Sherman Oaks, California. And one of the first things I did was drive down a road and went, oh, my God, what? And I stumbled upon the Brady Bunch house. And I was like, that's it, right there. Holy crap. It was unmistakably the Brady Bunch house. And it looked a little different, but you could still tell beyond a shadow of a doubt. And I got out. My wife took a picture of me standing in front of it, like my arms folded. And I thought, I'm one of 9 million people a day that probably does this.
When I lived there, I did the same thing too.
Of course,
Had to seek
it
out.
was incredible. And then I've still had to confirm. Like a couple people, like, hey, is the Brady Bunch house on? I don't remember the street name. I was like, is it right over there? And they're like, yeah, that's absolutely it. You were right. It was the average median list price in the neighborhood is $2 million. For the Brady house, $5.5 million. Worth every penny. Can you imagine?
It's like restored to its original decor
like
as well.
an HGTV series did it. They went back and rebuilt it so it looks just like. So the exterior shots from the TV show, that's what you see when you drive by. But the interior of that house was actually that was a set. Like what you saw on the inside isn't what the actual house looked like, but then they converted it so it does. So when you walk in the front door, it looks just like, you expect to see Tiger the dog with the itching powder show up, and Alice is back there making a meatloaf. Comedians Bill Burr and Dean Delray on their Instagram feeds the other day, they had a realtor show them the house, and they took pictures of themselves on the steps like the Brady kids.
Oh, great.
And I just saw the post, and it was like, dream come true. I mean, early in the days of social media, I found the picture of me in front of the Brady Bunch house, and I wrote on there, my childhood home. That's what my caption was. And it was funny because so many people were like, oh, wait, I thought you grew up in California? Like they didn't get the point that I was making, which was I grew up one of the Bradys. But, $5.5 million to live in the Brady house. Would you rather have the Brady house, or would you rather have the lagoon from Gilligan's Island in your backyard?
Boy, that's a tough call. If someone paid me $5.5 million, I'd take the lagoon.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Fair enough.
I was so weirdly obsessed with Gilligan's Island when I was younger. It was weird.
That is weird because that's way, way late in the game for Gilligan.
Well,
I didn't know folks of your generation were fans.
Oh, yeah, because there was this thing called Nick at Night,
Oh, sure was.
and they played all that stuff.
Yeah.
So All in the Family, the Jeffersons, I watched all that growing up.
I got to tell you, wow, that's amazing. The Gilligan episode that the older I get, the more it's just mind blowing. Remember the whole My Fair Lady episode where they took the story of My Fair Lady and it was like a dream, and Gilligan, it was like there was a Jekyll and Hyde vibe plus. And Marianne was like, he taught me how to talk and walk like a lady. He did. It was like, what? I mean, how much weed were the writers of Gilligan's Island smoking in a day?
Well, they could get their hands on it.
All right, we're running out of ideas. These people are still on this island. Let's do a cross-up Jekyll Hyde My Fair Lady episode. And the network was like, yeah, cool, go for it.
They did Hamlet too.
They did.
I want to be.
It is to be. That is the question that I ask of thee.
Yes.
That's oh my God, I haven't thought about that in
I
forever.
got to meet the skipper.
You met
that's
Alan
so
Hale?
cool.
You bet I did. Years ago, the station brought him in for a promotion, and there was a seafood restaurant at the time in Roseville called Skipper's. So you could go and join the skipper at Skipper's. And we went there, and just to see the everyday lunch crowd, there was one, a guy who was like 6'5" with a hairnet, walked in and screamed as loud as he could, "It's the mother effing skipper!"
Oh, heck yeah.
And he's like, "How are you?"
Oh, my
He didn't
gosh.
take his hat off and wrap him
No.
over the head.
Did you actually meet him?
Oh yeah, hung out with him. He was at a hotel afterwards, and I went there with my girlfriend at the time. I thought there'd be this huge crowd, but it was just the skipper alone in the lobby who had fallen asleep reading a golf magazine.
Oh, man,
And he
please.
startled awake, and I ended up talking to him for like 45 minutes. He's this erudite, interesting gentleman.
Please tell me he called you little buddy at least once.
Yes, of course he did. I made him.
Man, that's fantastic.
Got a great picture.
That's enough for me for history, but I do have a few other things I think are important enough to share. So let's have a history lesson. It is June 8th. On this day in 1979, the NBA Board of Governors approved the New Orleans Jazz move to Salt Lake City. Big problem the Jazz had in New Orleans was they played their home games, and I'd forgotten this, at the Superdome. At the Saints Superdome, which goes a long way towards explaining why nobody ever went. The court was a mile away from any seats. They moved to Utah. Everyone, of course, assumed they would change their name. The ownership said, no, it's a recognizable brand. We'll be the Utah Jazz. The Los Angeles Lakers were then thrilled as they were no longer the team with the most asinine name in the league. I'm just saying, there's no lakes in L.A. Come on. On this day in 1979, that same day, John Elway and Dan Marino were both drafted by baseball teams. Marino and Elway. The Royals drafted Dan Marino, 17 years old. The Yankees drafted John Elway. Of course, neither one of them ever went on to play professional baseball. They ended up being pretty good quarterbacks.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. That was a whole lot of Light My Fire by the Doors. It is Thursday, June the 8th. Earlier in the show, we were discussing security cameras in the home and all the weird stuff you come across when you make the mistake of going back through your footage. I was much happier. Much happier when I didn't know what was happening in my front and backyard in the dark at night.
Yeah.
And now that I have access to that information, I really wish I didn't. Tony, we've had a few texts from listeners, I believe, on this very subject on the Maple Grove Lock and Safe Talk and Text line.
Well, this one is kind of horrifying, but fascinating.
Well, hang on. Let me get comfortable here.
Right. I had a lady stop in front of my house, get out of her car, and defecate right in the middle of the street. I have it on my camera.
Well, I mean, you got to go.
What?
You got to go.
Yeah.
At least she did it in the street, not in the yard where you might step in it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
But then there's a sweet one to give balance here. Our grandkids.
Always the light and the dark with these.
The yin and the yang. Our grandkids were over visiting, and when they left, my oldest grandson told his mom and dad that he had to go say goodbye. And so he ran to where our front door was, and there was a little frog that he was saying goodbye to, and then started singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star to the little frog, and we didn't realize it until we watched our doorbell video cam the next day. Super cute.
Yeah, that is cute.
That is gorgeous. And defecated on the frog.
Right.
Or, is that how that works? Oh, my God.
Now it's a party.
The frog.
What's going on with these security cameras?
Yeah. Oh, here's one from Doreen. This is shocking.
Uh-oh.
A local newspaper delivery person. Isn't that shocking? People are still delivering newspapers. A local newspaper delivery person dumping hundreds of newspapers in my recycling dumpster. It was typically 4 or 5 a.m., so one could assume they would pick up the newspapers to deliver and immediately just dump them.
Oh. Wow.
Daily issue until we waited for him and caught him.
Yeah, I imagine so. I would, hey, having had myself what they called in the old days summer paper route.
Did you?
I can tell you, you don't get that paper, man. People get chippy. They find that. I
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody waited too long to say, "Hey, where's my paper?"
Yeah.
Like one day, okay, but 2 in a row, 3 in a row, forget it, man. You're getting lit up.
Did you get up earlier to do this job or the paper route?
Oh no, the paper route. It was an afternoon paper.
Oh, okay.
Of course it was.
Which really sucked because what are you doing in the summer of 1978 in the afternoon? You're at the pool, and every day it was like, oh, I gotta tear myself away from the pool and go deliver these 90 papers that took me, take me 30 minutes if I was hustling, but it would take 90 minutes because I was a lazy
Much more difficult to, toss into a dumpster in broad daylight. Although I will say that the silver lining with Doreen's post here is at least he was putting it in the recycling dumpster.
Well, I
responsible.
did get busted because the papers would come all wrapped up in a covering, a plastic covering, and they would be dropped on a street corner. That they weren't dumped in front of my house. It was just on a corner, and there was like a drainage culvert thing, like a pipe that it was exposed right there. And for the first few days I was cutting all the plastic wrap, I just shoved it into that pipe. Who could ever find out? Well, the guy whose lawn it was came out one day and go, "Hey, you got to stop doing that." And I looked at him and I thought this was the beginning of the end. The police are on the way. My dad's on the way.
Yeah.
He goes, "Hey, would you stop doing that? Just take those home and throw them away." And I was like, okay.
That's it?
And I was like, oh my God, you're not going to kill me for doing this? I literally thought like there's probably a jail term here involved in this.
There's a guy that used to have a paper route that grew up to watch the same thing. Oh, how about there's a mountain lion on the loose up in Stacy, just north of here.
Right.
Yeah, several people have said mountain lion on the security cams.
You can lob in a phone call, 651. What's that number? Wow. I just
Rock, 651-99.
989. I almost said 987 because that was my childhood number, 987-1352. 651-989-ROCK. Let us know what you've seen on your security cameras. We did mention there was a story of a woman had a neighborhood boy running into her garage to hug her dog on the same day that a woman in Canada found 2 naked witches eating a deer carcass on her security camera. So again, you get the yin, you get the yang, you get a little bit all in between. Completely insane.
I will tell you that that was about an hour ago we did that story.
Yeah.
I've gone back and looked at the naked witches 4 times. Not once have I gone back and looked at the kid, kissing the dog.
No, we can all imagine
what
what a kid kissing and hugging a dog looks like, but naked, cloven-hooved witches eating a deer, I'm all in on that. Candace, we have a phone call?
Yes, Jeff from Afton.
Jeff, good morning.
Hey, good morning. My kid from Plains, Montana sent me a video yesterday of a bear going into his garage.
Oh, for crying out loud. Black or brown?
It was a brown bear.
Oh, boy. That's even
brown
scarier.
bear.
Yeah, nice. It's
Any damage?
No, actually, his wife's dad was there, and he shoot him out of the garage.
Yeah, that's how they handle it out there. I lived in Montana for a while, and this time of the year definitely want to keep the garage buttoned up, looking for a little garbage out there. But bear, that'd be a good one.
There would be, to tie in the text we had from a listener, a bear walks into my garage, then someone named me is probably defecating in the middle of the street as well. I'm just saying, you want to see me clear myself, put a bear in a room with me.
Yeah.
That would be absolutely terrifying. Thank you for the call, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks.
All right. Let's see.
You'd love this one. This one will get you crapping in the street, Steve. Jackie, on the KQ Facebook page, a huge snake crawling up the door jamb over the brick to get to the barn swallow nest on the porch.
No. Remember when Jagger and Bowie did that remake of Crappin' in the Street?
That video was a little suspect.
That's what. Yeah, they should have called it Crappin' in the Street. Candace, do we have another call?
Yeah. Scott from Rockford.
Scott, good morning.
Good morning.
What's up, man?
This is about a mountain lion. This was several years ago when the DNR denied there was any mountain lions in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't plant any in Fort Ripley or any timber wolves, which was a lie. They did. But anyway, out in Maine, a mountain lion was hit by a car.
Oh, boy.
The tracking device on the mountain lion, the collar, guess where it was from?
Minnesota? Out in Maine?
Minnesota.
Wow.
I'm serious. The mountain lion was hit and traveled all the way to Maine and was hit by a car. But the DNR denied there was any mountain lions in Minnesota.
Well, mountain lions, like the rest of us, you got to be careful hitchhiking, you know?
Yeah, it's dangerous out there.
Yeah, heck
But
yeah.
Can you imagine going that far and through all the eastern states and not being hit by a car or being seen? I mean, what did he do? Take the Canada route and came down? I mean,
probably so.
But it's just an amazing story that they do travel 500 miles for food.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a big territory to cover, man, from Minnesota to Maine. And there are mountain lions all over the place. There's a guy on our Facebook page as well talking about catching one down in Eden Prairie and down in Waconia. They've been catching them. So they're coming through now. It was the weirdest, wildest thing. Maybe I'm terrible with the years thing, as you guys know. I want to say 20 years ago when they first started showing up, there was one in Bloomington that was hit on 35W. Like, no way. But I think they're fairly common coming through Minnesota now.
Yeah, I'm I 500 miles for a meal. I mean, I flew to L.A. to go to the Apple Pan once, but I can't say it was worth it. I mean, it's a burger. A good burger's a good burger, but still, come on.
Well, some of those fresh fried clams up in Maine, Biddeford, maybe. I'm thinking about it. Mom, she'd definitely accompany me on that. All right, it's time to give something away here, boys and girls. Right now on the Maple Grove Lock and Safe Talk and Text line, callers 9 and 2, 651-989-ROCK. We're playing Trust Us. For a chance to win tickets to see Impractical Jokers live. That's perfect for that show. That's coming up next Thursday, the 15th at the Target Center. Prize provided by Target Center. 651-989-ROCK. Dial up. Good luck. Please hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show, Thursday, June the 8th. Oh, it's time to play a game, ladies and gentlemen. My favorite time of the day. We like to have a good time in the morning, and nothing makes us all happier than knowing we're giving away tickets. Today, we're going to give away tickets to see the Impractical Jokers live. That's next Thursday, June 15th at the Target Center. And right now, Tony, if we were going to give away these tickets, how would you suggest we do that?
Let's just be spontaneous.
Okay.
Let's just do this thing, something different.
Why should I believe you?
Why should I believe you?
You can trust us.
I hope you'll trust us.
Trust us.
Let's find out if you'll trust us.
Now, why should I trust you?
Why? Why should I trust you?
Come on. You up. You trusted us.
Yep. Tickets to see the Jokers, and we're pranksters ourselves. I think we fashion ourselves.
Merry pranksters, yes.
Here's what we're going to do. The listeners will each have a chance. There's 4 of us. They'll have 4 chances. We'll go around the room. We're each going to make a statement of some sort.
Okay.
And the listener will guess if it's true or false. Is it? Did it actually happen, or is it a little pranky statement?
A little white lie, maybe. Mm-hmm. Okay, I like it. Trust Us is the game of the day. And Candace, we have 2 people ready to play. Who's caller number 1?
Kurt from North Branch.
Kurt, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys today?
Everything's great. We are ready to lie right through our teeth to you, or maybe tell you the truth. It's up for you to decide. Are you ready to play Trust Us?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, heck yeah. All right, well, so we're each going to give you a statement, and you will say true or false. Let's start with the Quizmaster General himself, Tony Lee. Tony, what do you have for Kurt?
Fair enough, Kurt. I have wiped out on a motorcycle 4 times, including hitting a mailbox and riding into a brick building.
Wow.
Oh, that's false.
That is absolutely true. I'm a disaster on 2 wheels. I'm not even that good on a bicycle.
4 times?
Yeah.
Wow, into a brick wall. I love that. I got a brand new motorcycle, Vulcan 750, back in the early 90s. Drove it to the radio station I worked at, and one of the young guys there says, "Hey, man, I ride motorcycles all the time. Can I take it for a spin?" I was like, "Oh, I just bought it, but yeah, go ahead." He jumped on the bike, put it in gear, and ran right into the brick wall of the radio station. Yeah. Son of a bitch.
All right,
and that man's name was Tony Lee.
Yeah.
So,
I'm that son of a bitch.
okay, so we've all learned that we keep Tony away from vehicles with less than 4 wheels.
Yeah, disastrous.
What about a bicycle?
Unbelievable.
No, I'm not even good on a bike.
No, I don't like it. All right, Kurt, sorry about that. You're 0 for 1, but all is not lost. It is time for Candace Wheeler to either tell you a truth or a lie. Candace?
I once got my wristband clipped and kicked out of a music festival for trying to get backstage to meet Bret Michaels.
Oh, I believe that.
Ouch. Thanks a lot.
Without yeah.
Is it true?
It's false.
Oh,
Wow. See, these guys are really, that one was variable. We don't know these about each other. We've not shared these, by the way, so I thought that was a slam dunk.
Kurt, I was with you 100%, brother.
Wow, that hurts.
Wow.
I would just think, any woman that wants to meet Bret Michaels and lose their wristband would go AWOL and,
Yeah, that was believable. She's going to get kicked out of Chippewa Summerfest by trying to get back and meet Steve, though.
Won't happen.
That's incredible. All right,
Sorry.
Kurt, you're 0 for 2. Again, all is not lost. You still have a chance to rebound. Brian Zepp with the true or false statement.
Okay, my family ancestry was traced back to being kicked out of England in the 18th century. Several members of the family were sent to the penal colony in Australia, while my direct ancestors fled to America.
It's Knowing you, I would believe that.
Yeah, and you would be right, mister.
All right.
Yeah, somebody did one of those spit tests, They spit in a tube and it came back. And on my mom's side of the family, the troublemakers, the Wibleys.
Wow. So Zepp's got some distant Australian relatives, probably.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Wibleys in Australia. There.
All right,
Looked them
fair
up,
enough. All right, Kurt, good rebound. You are 1 for 3. All right, I will share a statement with you now, sir, and you can determine if it's true. I have a rare, but for the most part, completely harmless, a very rare genetic condition. It's called situs inversus. The organs in my chest and abdomen are reversed. It's like a mirror image of normal human anatomy.
No, I wouldn't believe that.
However,
Close.
do you know anyone that has that,
Damn.
Steve?
Well, Chauncey Gorman, my dog, has that condition, so it was close. But hey, for the record, that is a real thing because I actually know a guy who has it. So not just my dog, I know a human who has that.
I didn't know humans could get that.
But Kurt,
That's
you
weird.
are you bounce back strong.
Yeah.
2 for 2. 2 for 4, I should say. Not bad at all after that slow start. So hang on. We're going to see how your competition does. Well played. Candace, who is caller number 2?
We have Mark from Shoreview.
Mark, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
All is well here. Are you following what we're doing here? You got a sense of this game?
I think so.
All right, very good. You're going to hear 4 statements. You're going to tell us if we're telling you the truth or if we're lying through our teeth. Tony, take it away.
All right, Sewer. Some years back, I lived in California, and I stayed in Ray Romano's guest house, and I had a pet chimp named Dr. Groovy.
I'm going to say that's false.
Completely made up.
Sounds
Good
like
job.
fun.
You had me until Dr. Groovy. If it
Yeah.
was just Groovy or Doctor, I would have believed it.
It's a good name for a chimp,
Hell
don't you
yeah.
think?
Doctor? All right. Well done, Mark. You're on the board. 1 for 1. Candace, take it away.
I once chipped my tooth when making out with my boyfriend in Italy.
Chipped it on what?
Hold on.
Use your imagination. It's Italy.
I'm going to say that's false.
It's true.
Oh, it's true. That's all right. Boy, I tell you what, Candace, I will come clean and say I thought you were going to say I once chipped my tooth making out with Bret Michaels.
No, I wish.
You went in a little hard there, didn't you, Candace?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right. So that's passion.
All right.
That's what you get,
Aggressive.
Emily. A lot
All
of
right,
passion.
you're 1 for 2, Mark. It is time for
right.
Zepp to see if he can deceive you or not.
All right, Mark. As a teenager, I once jumped a school bus on my motorcycle.
I'm going to say that's false.
Yeah, that is false. I was dared to, however, because Evel Knievel I was always bragging, I'm Evel Knievel. They're like, yeah, jump the school bus, and I pussed out. But to be fair, we only had one ramp. So the coming down was,
It was a small bus.
yeah, didn't do it. All right, that a boy.
Wow.
Yes.
All
small
right,
bus.
final statement of the day. Mark, coming from yours truly, here we go. I once assisted in an arrest. I tackled a fleeing suspect from a police officer who he had already eluded.
I'm going to think that might be true.
It is true.
Not a boy.
Wow.
Wow,
I
you're
mean,
a
to
hero.
Mark and Steve.
What the hell was I thinking?
Yeah, right. Were you drinking?
No, sober as a judge. Really questionable decision I made in my life. It worked out well, but it could have gone horribly wrong. I believe that means Mark just went 3 for 4.
Yeah. All right. There you
Wow,
go.
the human lie detector, Mark. Hey, Kurt, thank you for playing, brother. I'm sorry. Yeah. 2 for 4 wasn't enough today, but Mark, 3 for 4 did the trick. Next Thursday, you will be watching the Impractical Jokers live at the Target Center. Thank you both, gentlemen. Congratulations, Mark.
Congratulations, Mark.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
All right.
Good sport. That's kind of like being on a first date, A little truth, a little lies.
Is that what that's got to like?
Some of this, some of that.
Yeah.
Sure, whatever it takes,
Make out sex.
Yeah.
Right.
Chipping the teeth. We got to get back to that, man.
The listener
No,
chipped
I
it
don't
on
know.
what?
I
Yeah,
don't
really.
know what happened, you guys.
Listen, you were young. You were excited. You were in Italy. That's really
Yeah.
you said it. Hey, I was in Italy. Use your imagination.
Did he
You have
buck
brittle
or
teeth.
something? Oh, you Americans. They're poor dental.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Well, like I said, they got aggressive. There's nothing wrong with that. It's passion. It sounds like passion to me. Yeah.
He still has that chip to think of Candice.
I've got this strong enamel of a Roman. You take your Napolese cheap teeth away from me.
You guys are nuts.
I was in Italy once, and the record company guy. We were in Milan, and he took us to lunch, and I said something about the food being good. He goes, I'm a Roman. I can't eat this Milanese garbage.
Oh, funny.
I was like, oh, stop. You go to the United States and tell me how bad Milanese food is, for crying out loud.
I was at a fancy Italian restaurant, speaking of a first date with a lady, and she said, well, there's a lot of, I thought this place was Italian. I said, yeah, it is Italian. She goes, well, a lot of Roman stuff on this menu.
Really?
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had 2 children. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. We didn't get married.
Taking you out for noodles, honey.
It's like, I didn't. Yeah, I just was like, all right, let's have another drink.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's weird, the little red flags, the things that'll tick you off. I was having a conversation with a woman once who clearly didn't have any idea where any part of the world was. Like, she had geographical zero knowledge, because she made a couple of comments that truly indicated, like, I think she thought like a flat map was how the world was laid out. Like, I got the sense she didn't understand it was a round planet, like a globe.
Well, that's a thing.
And I remember thinking, like, this was going wonderfully, and now I have to leave. I couldn't finish the conversation. I was like, I'll be back in a second. I just walked away.
Yeah, the question then becomes, is this just going to be, am I going to see this out tonight and try and have a good time, or do I just bail now and cut my losses? Yeah.
No, looking back, I missed out on a lot of fun because of decisions like that one. You don't know geography? Well, I can't hang out with you. I mean, I was on a high horse for a while there.
Yeah, I took the other path, Steve, and I don't know if you missed out on a lot of fun or if you missed out on a lot of psychosis, a lot of trouble down the road. That short-term gratification.
Sure.
There's a price to pay for that, it turns out, often.
As I've aged, I've realized that things don't have to be emotionally charged to be valid and therefore real. When you grow up with a lot of drama, a lot of tension, then you start to think that if that's missing, then something's wrong.
Yeah,
it takes a while to go, oh no, actually, no, something's right. This is okay. Yeah, comfortable.
Right.
Calm is good. Yeah, it only took me 50-some odd years to figure that part out.
Oh, you learned.
Hey, speaking of discomfort, the KQ karaoke cruise is back. You could join us as we cruise down the St. Croix River and belt out your favorite tunes. We'll be belting out our favorite tunes. You can do the same. Friday, June 16th. That is a week from tomorrow with Stillwater Riverboats. Candace, did you have something you want to add?
Oh, I'm just so excited.
Oh, so excited.
Sounds excited.
You can get tickets at 92kqrs.com for a night of food, drinks, and music sponsored by my buddies at JTR Roofing. By the way, there will be a prize given on the KQ karaoke competition on the cruise. The top prize, tickets to see Billy and Stevie.
Wow.
That would be Joel and Nick's November 10th at US Bank Stadium. You're going to get a custom Billy Stevie football and a very fancy trophy.
A football?
A football, a trophy, and tickets to see Billy and Stevie on the KQ Karaoke Cruise.
I don't get the tie-in with that promotion. The Black
either
Forest licorice, I get.
No, I tell you exactly what it is. Billy and Stevie don't actually sing live. They are also karaokeing at US Bank Stadium. It's all on tape.
I love it. I meant with the football and the trophy.
Oh, it's US Bank Stadium, so there's a football.
Yeah.
And then a trophy just for winning a singing competition, I guess.
All right. Sounds good. All right, I'm all about it. All right, now, Steve, you listen to this podcast. We have a guest coming up here at 9 o'clock, True Crime Podcast. I love me some true crime, but I'm not familiar with this one. How do you pronounce this guy's last name? Kurt Kubitschek?
I believe it's Kubitschek.
Kubitschek. Queen Havoc and the Murder Cult.
Oh, if you're into true crime and if you're into, say, I don't know, Manson-esque insanity, you're going to want to hear this.
All right, I'm stoked. Coming up here at 8 o'clock. Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.
KQ Morning Show. It is Thursday, June the 8th. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by a guy named Kurt Kubitschek. Maybe it's Kubitschek. We'll find out. He is a documentary filmmaker and the host of a new podcast that is called Queen Havoc and the Murder Cult. And yeah, it's exactly that. A story from South Africa that is beyond mind-blowing. I listened to the first couple episodes yesterday, and I'm looking very forward to talking with him. If you're a true crime aficionado, this is right up your alley. And basically, since we're living in a era where every other person you know is a true crime aficionado, I think you'll find this pretty fascinating. True crime, before Kurt calls in, have you ever owned a bicycle that wasn't stolen?
Well, we owned a bicycle that wasn't used. We lived out in the country, gravel roads, and but you know what the tie-in there is? We bought it at a police auction.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was our only two bikes we had as a kid.
It was stolen somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
I have a bike. I've had a bike since like 1997 or 8 that I still have. It's the first bike of my life that was not stolen from me.
Same.
And it's 5 or 6 bikes leading up to that. But this is interesting because a study in Chicago found that if you have a cable lock and you lock your bike up, it's more likely to be stolen than if you just leave it unlocked.
Are you kidding?
Just people assume the bike's better or worth more, I guess, is the thinking.
Or they think you're close by.
Or
if the bike's not locked up.
That could very well be it too. Yeah, good point.
I have a buddy here in Minneapolis, grew up in South Minneapolis, and would always take keys and rocks to his bike and just scratch it up and make it look miserable because he didn't want it to get stolen.
Hey, I in Los Angeles in 1993, I was at a rehearsal studio, and Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers pulled up in a brand new Mercedes sedan, which he had already spray painted graffitied on. He put a white stripe curly thing like all over the hood and one of the doors. And I go, oh my God, who did that? He goes, I did. And I looked at him and he goes, no one will mess with it now.
Yep.
Literally, I was like,
brilliant.
Wow, right on. Okay, we are now, I'm very happy to say, joined on the horn. There's that scary music. Kurt Kubitschek is with us. Kurt, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How's it going?
Well, I was doing a lot better till I listened to your podcast yesterday. Okay, Queen Havoc and the Murder Cult. It's a story that is, it's impossible to even explain and make sense of, but it's basically a cult, a satanic cult in South Africa led by a woman named Cecilia Stein. First things first, I guess in South Africa, this must have been an incredibly huge story. That's a name everybody knows by now, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, she's whether she's talked about or feared,
right.
Definitely well known all over the country.
When someone calls you the Charles Manson of, in this case, South Africa, you know you've done something wrong in the right way, I guess, to get that kind of notoriety. Before we talk about the specifics of this case, this is something that blew my mind. There was an entire unit of the police dedicated to satanic crimes at one point, or there still is?
Yes. It was originated back in the 90s by a good friend of mine, Cobus Jonker. So, yes, actually, and it had everything from, satanic, occult, ritualistic, all those kinds of specific crimes. Yes.
Wow.
That is true.
Just bored with your run-of-the-mill murders, or?
So is this this is in response to actual self-claimed Satanists doing things, or was this a bit of a panic of if anything weird must have been satanic, or is it a combination of those things?
It's a combination of all those things. I mean, you had the Satanic Panic that was really big, obviously, everything from here to UK, and it's, kind of stretched over there into, mostly, I'd say, probably mid to late 80s all the way into maybe the early 2000s, and that was when the unit kind of ultimately was just prevalent, that there were these kinds of bizarre, dark cases, and so many of them, that they ultimately created a unit.
Wow. So, it's pretty wild. The story that you tell, the Cecilia Stein and her satanic cult story. This is in a small mining town, and I guess things like this. I mean, is it sort of dismissive to say it's easier to get away with this kind of stuff in a small town, a little more isolated? Maybe people are a little more somehow susceptible to mind control.
You know what? I wouldn't really like to necessarily say it like that because going over there and meeting everybody. These are people just like all over our country here that are just trying to make a living and work and most of the country is incredibly spiritual or religious, however you want to call it. So there is that facet, and you just had people that were going to church and going to kind of midweek groups, and they met the wrong person,
right?
Who ultimately took advantage and manipulated their trust in someone who knew exactly what they were doing.
In these cases, Kurt, and I just jumped on it and subscribed to it. Queen Havoc and the Murder Cult on Apple. Now, it's probably on just about every podcast service out there. I see it's only about 4 episodes in right now, so I can't wait to get started. But these ringleaders of these murder cults, are they, most often when you talk about the satanic angle, because I'm thinking of Charles Manson, are they nuts themselves, or is there an ulterior motive generally, to just control people or maybe bilk money out of them? Not that Charles Manson did that, but are they as deep into this stuff themselves? I had to really think about that. Oh.
I think we
he was a self. You there?
Yeah,
we had a little break up there. You're back.
Okay. Okay, sorry. She was a self-proclaimed ex-Satanist. So she had claimed all this stuff about being a part of these groups and knowing this stuff very, very well. So, because of that, people trusted her to give them knowledge, and she ultimately manipulated people who were kind of on the other side of things, saying that she was, kind of born again, and that she was, somebody who was incredibly knowledgeable about this. So that once they kind of trusted her, she kind of came in with manipulation and then kind of built a small criminal enterprise off of it.
Okay.
She basically abused and kind of saw people's need to be needed, or longing to belong to something and having purpose and identity, and specifically kind of chose certain people who would do her bad deeds and everything from give her money, the whole deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Kurt Kubitschek is with us. Queen Havoc and the Murder Cult is the name of this podcast. It leads her followers to kill 11 innocent people over a series of years. Have you learned a lot? Have you studied before this story about cults? And the reason I ask, generally speaking, cult leaders, they're not passing around a playbook literally, but figuratively, they probably all fall upon the same kind of protocols, right? Generally speaking, do cult leaders have used the same tools, I guess, to manipulate people?
Yeah, for the most part. My only experience before was I did spend some time on another kind of docu-type project, I'd say probably 6 or 7 years ago, with kind of like a mini Wolf on Wall Street. He didn't launder and steal and all that stuff, hundreds of millions, but it was more like around 20 million of the middle class.
Wow.
And that was a very interesting kind of silver-tongued individual who would be able to kind of, just tell me what his goals were in meetings and different things, and you'd watch the stuff happen.
Right.
And Cecilia is from the same breed. So whether it's cult leaders or even just savvy businessmen.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
well.
Hey, Kurt, how long were you involved? Sorry, Kurt, how long start to finish, before the podcast was recorded? Is this a few years of your life, I assume, following this story?
Yeah. Yes, it was a couple of years. It's probably been 2.5 years that I built it. I built it as a television show and ultimately put it together. And I met one of the lead character detectives, Suzette Canotze, and she was awesome, and we became friends, and I met her, and I said, there is a really fascinating story here, and you're a phenomenal type of hero detective. So I would love to kind of build this and get to know everybody, and I want to take this story to the U.S. and to the world.
But I guess there had to be days where you couldn't even get to sleep after the kind of things you were learning about this case.
Yeah, I would say, and it was a whole nother thing when I actually got to, kind of make it into the prisons and, meet a couple of these individuals that were a part of it. Let me tell you.
What's that experience like?
Just tune in for that, because that's its own experience. It's one thing reading about it and seeing them in pictures, and then actually meeting them.
Yeah, the podcast is called Queen Havoc and the Murder Cult. And again, I listened to the first 2 episodes yesterday, and it is absolutely chilling, to say the very least. It's fantastic, and I imagine you're going to have an awful lot of listeners on this. Thanks for taking the time to call in, my man.
No, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. We'll see you. Okay, turn off that spooky music.
Does it set the mood?
It does. Perfect.
Yeah, and it's really, and by the way, no nonsense. Put that podcast on, man. It is awful. It's just incredible. And I mean, like I said, when a woman is generally referred to as the Charles Manson of South Africa, you're getting in pretty deep. When I was a kid, there was a copy of Helter Skelter just in the Gorman house, a paperback version. And I was probably 8 the first time I picked it up and flipped through it and then started reading it. Big mistake. But it also, it flipped a switch in my head, and so like as a teenager, I was definitely, if I saw anything about a serial killer, I was like, wait, hang on, let me check that out a little bit. And for a little while there, I was, the Ted Bundy case was fascinating to me, and the different things you'd hear about. And there became a time, probably somewhere in the 90s, as serial killer books became more and more prevalent, where I just tapped out. I was like, okay, wait. I'm actually I can't take any more of these stories. Like I was fascinated by them, and then one day, like a light switch, I went, I never need to hear about any of this crap again. It's just way too distressing. And then yesterday, there I am. I'm walking over the Stone Arch Bridge, listening to this thing, and I'm like, oh gosh, here I go again. It's fantastic. It's really worth a listen.
It's so compelling, and you're right. Every time I go through a true crime podcast or I watch a series on Netflix or something like that, I have to walk away from it for a while. I just have to put it away and say, all right, it's like a sporting season.
Yep.
I have to just get away from it because it gets dark, and you just start, not that you have dark thoughts, but it's a gloom that sort of, puts a pall over just your general happiness. But it's just so fascinating because it's so outside of anything we can understand or know. Just him talking about going in and interviewing some of the incarcerated murderers, to sit down with a murderer or a Ted Bundy for an interview is, it just must be a surreal experience.
Yeah, I read Helter Skelter at a real young age, too, and I'm still haunted by the photos.
Yeah, I can see them all. They're seared into my brain. Absolutely, 100%.
In our age, the Generation X, look what we were raised on. Because of the Manson murders. I remember the movie when I was a kid, and Mom and Dad let me watch that when I was a kid, and I'm like, people did that?
Yeah.
And then the serial killer thing just blew up. We had all the serial killers in the late 70s and early 80s, Son of Sam and that freaking clown dude in Chicago whose name is
John Wayne Gacy.
Gacy, exactly. It was just all, and then of course Bundy was just all happening in the 70s and 80s. So I guess it's
for everyone who says that the serial killer thing with smartphones, with CCTV, it's just harder and harder to imagine someone getting away with it. Just yesterday, I saw Portland, Oregon, 6 women have been found. They believe there is a new guy on the scene out in Oregon. And just seeing that, it is the kind of thing like, we had a conversation. What's the Netflix show, Mindhunter, which is an incredible show on Netflix. 2 seasons. My wife and I were watching it over the pandemic, and so the kids come in and they're like, so what is this whole thing? Like the concept of a serial killer, like that's not something they grew up hearing about very much, the way we did, to your point, Zep. And we were just kind of talking about it, and they were looking at us like, like, wait a minute. They'd heard of Charles Manson. They'd heard of Helter Skelter. They'd heard of John Wayne Gacy. But we went, of course, we just go into this off into the ditch with a lengthy conversation about all these various cases. And they were just thinking like, my kids are both born 2000 and 2002. So in their mind, the world before, like the 20th century to them, they call it the 19s, like 1996 and 1952. It's the same thing to my kids. It's the 19s. They're literally looking at us and they're like, man, you guys came from like another planet. Thank God I'm from the 2000s. And I'm like, it's not exactly all it's not all unicorns and rainbows in the 2000s. Trust me. But they're like, but there's no serial killers at least. I'm like, well, maybe not.
Don't get too comfortable, Candace. I heard you saying, yeah, I hear that, because just last year I read, and I think I mentioned on the show, that the FBI has 52 open cases of serial killers, 52 different serial killers, they believe, walking around out there in the United States right now, operating.
That's just great.
Okay, well, that's 51 more than I was aware of, so
Yeah,
that's kind of sucks.
Well, this is gruesome and dark, and unfortunately for our topics this morning, it's going to get even darker. The biggest contributor to failed relationships.
Oh, boy.
We're going there.
All right.
Also, with this story about a couple therapy, that I'd be a relationship killer for me. You tell me. When we get to it here at 8:30, I dare you to use that music when we interview D. Snider at 9 o'clock.
I will.
Hang tight.
It's the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. In 30 minutes, D. Snider of Twisted Sister will be joining this show. He's got a new book out about a subject you may be not expecting, and we will discuss that with D. Snider. He of Twisted Sister, he of the PMRC Senate hearings, or the House is Senate, right? Or the Parental Music Resource Center. Remember that whole thing in the 80s?
Oh, yeah.
Tipper Gore and a bunch of senators' wives were trying to censor or put warning stickers on albums. Obviously, they just were in cahoots with the record companies, because when you put a warning sticker on a record, guess what? It sells 10 times as many copies as it would have otherwise.
Yeah.
D. Snider very famously testified, and everybody in the world had the same thought, which I did, which is, that guy's pretty smart. Like, hey, wait a minute. That guy's really got it together. So anyway, I'm looking forward to talking with him in about 30 minutes. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in relationships, personal relationships, many, many things. But oftentimes it's a real simple thing. Very common contributors to failed relationships. How about this? Here's a list of things that the 10 most popular culprits, people contributing to their failed relationships. Number 1. Clinginess.
Oh, yeah.
43% say that's been a role in a failed relationship.
You experienced that, Candace?
Well, I don't know. Clinginess and jealousy, I guess, are different.
A little different.
Yeah, clinginess can just be an annoyance,
Right.
which can maybe lead to. Yeah, I don't know. They're both bad, but
What are you
jealousy
doing?
is different.
What are you doing? What do you want to do? I don't know. You just look so cute sitting there.
Yeah.
Needy.
I always thought it meant, to me anyway, in a relationship, because if you're really both into it, you're both clingy.
Sure.
But if one person's into it a lot more than the other person, then they come off as clingy. If they're like, I want to spend every second of every day with you. And I'm thinking, like twice a week is good.
Well, there's also, I'd like to spend every second of every day with you too, but I don't feel the need to say that every second of every day.
Yeah.
Like, there used to be, or I used to think about it in terms of the first person to crack and then say, like, isn't this the best time? I would always be like, well, it was till you mentioned it. I can hear myself in earlier relationships when somebody go, oh, I'm having the best day. And I'd be like, well, don't say that.
Yeah.
Like, just stay present and just be in the day.
Right.
The better thing to say is, man, yesterday was awesome, wasn't it? I prefer that. Now, that's me being A, a jerk, and then B, the girl being too clingy. See how that works?
Right. It comes down to how into it you are. And that's probably the biggest thing with relationships, is being just as much into it or just as little into it as the other person, kind of syncing that up. I wonder if this one's ever happened to Candace. Candace?
I like Kansas.
Oh, no, that brings back horrible memories.
Oh, did somebody call you Kansas? Or just you
Wait.
don't like Kansas?
A mean boy.
A mean boy?
Would call you Kansas?
Some clingy, mean boy.
How old when did this happen?
Like we're 10, probably.
You were 10, and he called you Kansas? Or was it Kansas Candace, or was it Kansas?
Kansas! You suck.
Wow.
Well, I wasn't going down that path.
Whatever.
I was just reminded of the fact that, like, so my last name, Gorman, if you're named Gorman, people just call you Gorman. It's one of those names. Hey, what's up, Gorman? And I remember a kid when I was probably 8 or 9. It was a girl, an older girl. She goes, oh, what are you doing, Gorham?
Oh, that stings.
And I was like, what does that calling me? Why would you call me? It really did. I was like, first of all, she's older than me. And second, the way she emphasized Gorham. And I actually knew someone whose name was Gorham, spelled Gorham. And I was like, maybe they're Gorham, but they say Gorham because they don't want to be embarrassed like I would be if my name was Gorham. It's amazing the things that stay in your little craw like that.
Yeah. Well, sorry for that, Candace. But what about being too obsessed with your pet? Is that a deal breaker in a relationship? What if the guy's... I know it is if you're dating a guy, because this happened to me with a woman and her cats. But if Candace, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're dating a guy and he's like, I don't get, but you're way too into your dog. Deal breaker?
But it's Gigi. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
I get it. I get the pet thing. Yeah. Sorry, I was on the phone. I don't know what you guys were talking about.
I know, we've talked about this before. Yeah.
The guy is obsessed with my dog or too obsessed with his dog?
No, just being too obsessive with a pet in a relationship.
Generally
have you been a victim of that, or have you just been,
No, guys
accused
don't
of
really
it?
like Gigi. The guys I've been with are kind of like not into Gigi, and I don't understand why, because she's perfect and sweet and soft.
I can answer that question for you because guys are needy and juvenile, and if you're giving Gigi love, then suddenly they don't feel like they're the coolest guy you've ever met.
If we're dating, I'm Gigi.
Yeah. Candace is laughing. Candace is laughing way too hard at that. She's like, "Yeah, good luck, dude."
What about who are you on the phone with?
Well, he has a serial killer story. I don't know if it's the appropriate time or not.
We're talking about relationships. Of course it is. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, we were discussing serial killers before. I'm happy to blend in the call with the storyline here. Who have we got?
Good. I want to play this.
Here, cue the bad music. Oh, here we go. This better be good. What if this is a confession?
Oh, my God. Come on. Tease me.
Here we go.
Candace, who have we got?
We have Jeff.
Jeff, how many people have you killed?
Oh,
Hello.
Jeff, good morning.
Oh, there goes that.
Hey, good morning. I was just listening to you guys talking about the serial killers, and I was actually in prison with the Catch Me Killer.
Oh.
Wait. Whoa.
All right, refresh my memory. Who's the Catch Me Killer? What's their thing?
His real name is Paul Stefani,
Okay.
and he used to go around killing prostitutes with a screwdriver.
Oh, Lord. Where was this happening?
In Minnesota. And what he would do is he would call the police after he committed these murders, and he would say, "Catch me, I don't want to do this again, blah, 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 all of that." And then as soon as he got done talking to these police, he would go out and kill another one.
Holy cow.
And you were in the joint with this guy?
Yeah, I was actually, the different jobs they have in prison. I was actually in St. Cloud with him, and I was on the paint crew with this guy. And he was a hell of a character. We used to call him Horsehead because, the guy had a horse head.
To his face?
Horsehead.
But anyway, he also had really bad seizures, and we were sitting there playing cribbage one time, and he looks at me and says, "I'll be right back, Jeff." And he went, "Oh," and he flailed about and hit the floor and busted his head open. And this guy was nuts.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then some.
Can we ask what you were in for, Jeff?
Pardon me, Tom?
Can we ask what you were in for?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was in for murder.
Okay, fair enough then.
Yeah, but just once. Not like you were a serial killer.
I was in for second degree. There was a dope dealer that had sold some marijuana laced with PCP to my younger brother, and he walked out in the street, got killed, ran over by a truck, and so, eye for an eye type of thing.
All right,
Okay,
man.
then.
A man of conviction.
Fair enough, Jeff. Well, hey, thanks for the call. And wow, I'm. You know what? You've kind of rendered us all speechless here. That's an incredible thing. So, hey, let me ask you this: how long has it been since you were released?
I got out in 1996, and I've been a model citizen ever since.
Right.
Yeah, sounds like you were before that, too, maybe.
Yeah, man, it could have been. Listen, hey, thanks for the call, brother, and thanks for listening.
You bet. You guys keep on rocking, man.
See
Take
ya.
care.
All right, cool. Okay, so
What a moment.
rarely do you get a call from someone talking about personal experience with a serial killer, and that's not the part of the call that blows your mind.
No, I appreciate his honesty. I mean, Jeff, thanks for just throwing it out there, man. That's what it's all about. But yeah, right. You just the music stopped for crying out loud. Was that on cue, or did you just hit the off button? Like, wait a minute.
That's what I felt to do.
All right. Yeah, it was a good dramatic moment. Thanks, man.
Man alive.
What were we talking about?
we were talking about the fact that being a serial killer can kill your relationship.
Favorite ice cream.
Yeah. No kidding. The catch me killer.
Also known as the whiny killer, I guess, because he would be like really whiny on the phone to the police.
Well,
I just killed somebody.
And that'll end a relationship. If you don't have a good phone voice, come on, you can't last in a relationship. My first long distance relationship was just a summer. My girlfriend in high school lived like 10 miles away, and I didn't have a car, and it was school ended, and then suddenly we were just on the phone for the whole spent 10th grade like inseparable in school, and then the minute summer hit, we were just on the phone, and I learned really quickly like I'm not built for this. These phone calls, like if we were we're talking. So what are you doing? What do you want to do? What are you thinking about? And after like 2 days of that, I was like, hey, I can't be doing this, man. I'm feeling trapped. I'm feeling boxed in. She's like, what are you talking about? It took a few months before we actually officially broke up, but it was literally like I didn't like her voice on the phone. It's that simple.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing. I hadn't noticed it in person, but then, man, something about the phone just changed everything.
Yeah, there are those little things that seem inconsequential. There was a whole Seinfeld moment about that. Like she ate her peas or something like that. There was something about peas. Or her toes were too far apart. But there are little things, if they bother you from the get-go, I know people would say, oh, well, you'll get used to that. No, you won't. No, you don't.
No, there was a thing the other day, a study of all these long-lasting relationships, and that basically, long story short, over time and over a lot of social people studying these things, opposites attract, but they don't hang out together very long. Like the longer relationships, you got to have way more in common. That whole idea of we're nothing alike, it's perfect. It's like, yeah, not for the long haul. That's good for a week or a month or maybe a year. But at some point, you got to have a lot of common ground. To make something last. The comedian Jay Moore at one time, I remember I saw him and he said, well, my wife and I don't have much in common other than we hate all the same stuff. And I thought, okay, well, that's a start.
Yeah, right, sure. Exactly.
If you've got the same things to complain about, that you're at least got that going for you.
Yeah, exactly. Reminds me of a guy, Stretch worked on the show for many, many years. My ex-wife and I have that in common. We both hate myself, so... You had to know Stretch to appreciate that. All right, let's see how long it would take you to split this relationship. This guy in his mid-30s just posted a story on Reddit about how his wife has a Ouija board. I know some of you guys, Tony, you think there might be something to the Ouija board, but she uses it to communicate with her dead grandfather. I'm going to give her that.
Okay.
But over this last weekend, the Ouija board told her that her husband was cheating on her, and she just went off on him. He's not actually having an affair, according to the story, but his wife refused to believe that her grandfather and the Ouija board would lie to her, so they started some marriage counseling, and the guy's worried that, they're going to go to this new age counselor. Guys always worry about the same thing when you go into marriage therapy, couples therapy. I've done it. We always worry about the same thing, and that is, well, of course they're going to side with you. You're the woman. You make sense. I'm the irrational brute, I'm the obnoxious pig. And it doesn't necessarily go that way. But, all right, so the Ouija board. Tony, help me out here.
There's something dark and evil about the Ouija board. Stay away.
All right, it might be, but could it? What's this guy dealing with here? The Ouija board said he was cheating.
Well, that shows you how dark. He's not cheating. The Ouija board's lying, which is an indicator of just how dark and evil the Ouija board is.
Well, why isn't she getting this?
Wreaking Ouija havoc since the 19th century, those damn boards.
What a fun name, Ouija.
I tried to contact Jim Morrison on a Ouija board in high school.
Okay.
And he totally... was there.
He said, Kansas, you suck.
No, he told me to go to California and stuff like that. But it was just my friend Greg moving it. He admitted a couple of years later.
Did you actually believe it at the time?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, because I was seriously obsessed with the Doors in high school. It took over me. Like, it was really, really crazy. I would listen to them all the time, read about it. They took over me. So I for sure thought that it was because I had this deep connection with this person. And yes, I definitely believed it.
Wow. So in the course of an hour, we're talking about like satanic cults, mind control cult leaders, and then we're wrapping up with you and Jim hanging on the Ouija board. That's a pretty fitting button. But speaking of Jim Morrison, I'm sorry that you didn't actually get contacted by Jim Morrison. I'm sorry Jim Morrison didn't turn out to be a bigger part of your life. But we are taking nominations right now for KQ's Father of the Year 2023. That's right, Father of the Year 2023. You can nominate someone at 92kqrs.com. Let us know what makes your dad the coolest, and we will put it to a vote next week. KQ's Father of the Year will take home a brand new grill from Fratelloni's Hardware, a grill kit. You'll get tickets to see Kansas Wheeler 7:15 at the State Theater. That's next week. You'll get some LPs, you'll get some CDs, you will get KQ gear. Man, this is fantastic. Sponsored by Oak Ridge Dental. Complete contest rules at 92kqrs.com.
It's the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS. Zep, Tony, Candace, and Steve Gorman are the KQ Morning Show. 92 KQRS.
I'm Steve Gorman. This is the KQ Morning Show. It is Thursday, June 8th. In a few moments, we're going to be joined by the man we just heard singing, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister. He has a new book. It's called Frats that he just wrote, and he's going to tell us all about it here in just a few moments. If you have not been looking at the news, you may be unaware of the smoke situation taken over a lot of the northeastern part of the United States. A bunch of Canadian wildfires. The smoke is blowing down. And for instance, New York City, the entire city is just in a haze. It's like an orangish gray hue in all the photos you see. An awful lot of Broadway shows were canceled last night. The Yankees, the Mets, the sporting events were closed. A couple of the plays that did go on were halted when actors on stage couldn't breathe appropriately enough. I mean, it's a serious condition. I saw that the air quality in New York City yesterday was the worst measured on planet Earth. The worst air quality on the planet was in New York City. It's an amazing thing to see. And now some reports, as the winds and the weather patterns are changing a little bit, some of that is being reported in northern Minnesota. Some of that smoke's actually blowing west and south from Quebec. So just a thing to keep our eyes on. But the weather over the weekend, not expected to change in the Northeast, so it's not going anywhere.
No, I saw the Lynx were supposed to play the Liberty last night in New York City, but the arena filled up with smoke. Another one of those indoor situations out there. You don't hear that very often. Currently this morning, air quality I see is reading moderate, but it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Remember when we had that bad waft of wildfire smoke down here from Canada? We were the second most polluted air. Minneapolis was number 2 to some city in China.
Wow.
Our boss James is out east now, and he described it as oddly campfirey.
Yeah, that's right. Man, that is something to if you have friends in that area, I'm sure they've probably been you've been hearing from them. But I saw a whole Twitter thread yesterday where a guy who's a doctor of some sort just had all these tips for what to do if you're in one of those areas as far as staying indoors. But again, here come the masks. For this time, I don't think anyone's questioning whether they're a good idea or not to get at least the biggest particles away from your lungs. But all sorts of protocols for staying indoors, shutting off your vents, when to turn them on, when to turn them off. It's a really scary situation. And I mean, it is just growing and growing and growing. As it goes. So we'll keep you posted if anything breaks with that. But it's just something to keep our eyes on as those smokes start to, they're in the northern part of the state, and we are not necessarily out of range here in the Twin Cities.
All right. I know Dee's ready to go, but I see they just shut down airports in New York City 1 hour ago.
Oh, no kidding.
FAA issued a ground stoppage.
Okay. Well, from that, let's get on the horn with Dee Snider, who joins us. Of course, most famously known as the singer of Twisted Sister. Now, a published author. The book Frats is available wherever you buy books, and it is quite a tale. Dee, it's good to have you on the show. Good morning.
Great to be on, Steve. Good morning, everybody.
This is a story that a lot of folks on the surface may be surprised to hear that you write. It's about a young boy in 1972 basically trying to make his way through the brutal world of high school, and specifically as a guy in a world with male, what we now call toxic masculinity, and how do you figure out who you are in that setting. I say that people might be surprised to hear you writing about this, but then you go, wait a minute, this is D. Snider, a guy that always stood out, a guy that always did things his own way. But that's not easy when you're a teenager to figure out who you are and how you want to be.
Well, it's much more intense than that, Steve. First of all, I had no idea I was writing about toxic masculinity until my publisher said, this is about toxic masculinity.
Right, exactly.
I was just writing a coming-of-age story about growing up, and what's missing from that description is where I grew up, there were high school fraternities, which I thought was normal because it's where I grew up, and these chartered Greek-lettered fraternities were just basically gangs that, because they were fraternities, they were allowed to roam the halls wearing their colors, and they ruled the school. And people like me, big weird dudes with long hair, just tried to avoid getting our asses kicked.
Right.
But we knew this is the world they grew up in. It wasn't until I left Long Island that I discovered high school fraternities aren't a thing. So people were very interested in what was that world like, and so I got an idea for a story. And what I did was, although all the events it's based on actual events, and they're pretty horrific. I took a fictitious character named Bobby Kovacs, and imagine what if you were transferred in your senior year from Middle America and dropped into this suburban gang landscape, having no idea of the lay of the land. And so he walks in day one, crosses the wrong person, and it just sends his world down a downward spiral as he tries to protect himself and insulate himself and deal with this hostility that's coming at him from that he doesn't even really know why.
Right.
So as the new guy in school. So and as I said, I was the guy, a great observer of that world. It's a real world, and it's very detailed, and it's intense.
It sounds pretty intense. And interestingly enough, okay, so like you said, toxic masculinity, someone said, by the way, that's what you're writing about. That's something we think of. It's always framed, and I think appropriately, as something that impacts in a negative way women, but it's hardly a picnic for the guys involved in it. And to your point, you don't even know that's what it is until you get some separation. Anybody that's gone through a situation like this, anybody that's moved into a new landscape, and anybody that's dealt with those kind of intense peer pressures can probably relate to a lot of what this character is going through.
100%. I think a lot of people have dealt with that, terrible moving when you sort of have your roots already laid down, your friends and your world, and that happens to a lot of people. But they found a word for it, but I understand how it became called that because women were seriously objectified and insanely in the 70s.
Yeah.
You see it in the world of rock and roll in the 70s and 80s, when the Motley Crue Dirt movie came out and people going, hey, that's not cool, those girls were under the table doing that to you guys. Well, that's what they were doing. But how did women get put accepting those kind of positions, no pun intended, and guys seeing that as acceptable behavior. So it is a very weird world, and the effects are long range because I grew up coming out of there, and as opposed to some people recoiling, it made me tougher and harder. But I brought that toughness and hardness with me to the world. Very hard not to exert that on my sons and make them more like me, and realize I don't want them to be the same, go through what I went through. But they cry more than I do. I never cry. I've got no tear ducts. Nobody from the 70s that cries. Men don't cry.
No, of course.
But now everybody's emotional. What happened?
I can tell you this. No one ever questioned your toughness, and I mean that sincerely, because anybody that walks on stage with crimped hair and the makeup and what you wore, you were basically you were saying, you got something, bring it at me. I'll take you on. You were a tough guy.
It was, I was looking for trouble, and I was finding it every night. And I just people were posting pictures. A lot of people saw me, in the 80s for the first time, and they get that sort of Raggedy Ann on acid with a face full of makeup. But then also people pulling out, you're wearing stockings and garters. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, I did. And and you know what it's like to get your ass kicked by a guy like that? Embarrassing.
Isn't that the truth?
Beat the hell out of me, Dad. So I was, it was like playing biker bars, wearing these, just the most feminine clothes I could find. fine. Little shorty tops, anything to get in trouble. But I feel better now. I just want everybody. I feel a lot better. I've been through a lot. I'm better, and I've grown. I'm better for it.
D. Snider is with us on the KQ Morning Show. My impression of you, living in Kentucky, MTV, I see We're Not Going to Take It, and I think, oh, overnight success. You guys were grinding forever, though, weren't you?
Twisted. We broke in 1984. People saw it May 84. So just about, what is that, 39 years ago, people saw Twisted Sister. We're Not Going to Take a video. Oh, my God, this is great. The band formed in 1973.
Phew. Yeah.
1973.
Yeah,
okay?
working those clubs,
no
man.
Crew. The whole Bowie thing was over. Alice Cooper was done, and we're there with a face full of makeup, like in biker bars, going, "Yeah, we're still doing it." And we just kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it until finally people said, "Oh, okay, it came around again." It's been 10 years. We're ready for this.
Yeah, you guys ran a straight line. The world kept spinning, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, but there's no doubt about it. People who say, "Why are you still wearing that makeup?" Nobody, the Kiss took it off. I go, well,
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Hey, D, so back to your book, Frats, which is available as of June 2nd, so it's been out just earlier this week. It's available at Amazon.com, wherever books are sold. Again, so you said you were just going to write a coming-of-age story. How long has this been kicking around as an idea? And then once you started, how long did it take soup to nuts to finish?
The story itself has been in my mind for many, many years. Just like I said, finding out that this was not a typical world that I grew up in. I'm not saying there's no gang violence. Everybody's got their stories to tell and their scars, but this was my particular world that I grew up in. And I actually was going to make a screenplay out of it, but then I wrote my memoirs, and I've really been writing for decades now, and I really enjoy writing. And then COVID hit. And I was down, we have I'm not bragging, we have a house down in Belize on the beach. I was sitting under my palapa going, so what am I going to do for the next several months? And I said, you know what? I've always been thinking about writing a novel. I'm going to write that novel. And I started working on it then. But then, once the COVID thing sort of mellowed out, then I had to get back to recording records and doing shows and radio and voiceover and all the things else I do. So it slowed up the process. So it's been over the past few years. But it started when COVID hit. That's when I started thinking about actually doing a novel.
Now, as a published author now, have you made the move to jackets with patches on the elbows, and are you smoking a pipe?
Do you guys have you can see me through my camera?
Busted. You are busted, D. Snider.
This is quite embarrassing because I have no pants on. Thank God you can't see that. But you know what? I mean, again, it's one thing I'm really pleased. I'm doing all these interviews, and hardly anybody's surprised. And I'm like, I want to say thank you because I've spent my life he's doing radio now. Oh, he's on that Breaking the Band, narrating that show. Oh, yeah. Right. Oh, he's on Broadway doing Rock of Ages. I like to keep surprising people. And you're going to see me in movies. I'm going to be in a movie with Ben Affleck and Adam Sandler in a dramatic role. It's been pushed back. I'm supposed to shoot it this summer. I'm going to be directing my first movie, My Enemy's Enemy, as soon as this strike is over. I've got a lot more surprises up my sleeve.
That's incredible. Speaking of surprises, I mentioned earlier in the show, everybody had that initial reaction to Twisted Sister, very in your face. Songs are catchy, but the guy looks crazy. I remember being very surprised seeing footage of you testifying in Congress when you were at the PMRC hearings. I, along with everybody else, immediately went, that guy's pretty bright. It's like a different context to see you in. And so the idea that same guy, to your point, has done Broadway, is an actor, has written a book, it's really not a surprise. So well done coming in under the radar and setting yourself up to always be underestimated and therefore always winning.
I can't say it better than that. I'd like to put that on my tombstone, actually. Could you email me that quote?
Well, hey, I'm a drummer, and I always say if you can complete a sentence as a drummer, people think it's a miracle. So you can go pretty far when people don't expect much in return from you.
Yeah. What can you say about guys who hit things with sticks? So that's the drummers.
That's how that goes.
I gotta love them.
Hey, D,
man, thanks so much. I appreciate the coverage and and the support. And more surprising, by the way, graphic novel coming out next month, just about the Senate hearings and how I wound up being the voice of a generation. So I'll be talking to you soon.
Fair enough. That's awesome. That answers my final question. Thanks, D.
All right, take care.
See ya.
A graphic novel, no less. I remember. I don't even know if he wrote it or not, or if his just name was attached to it. But it came out mid-late '80s. Teenage Survival Guide, but it was D. Snider's Teenage Survival Guide. So I don't know if, he just gave a guy some story and someone else wrote it. I should have Googled it here. But I was listening to the interview. And it was hilarious. It was fantastic. But it sounded like it echoed some of these stories, I think, that show up in his new book, Frat.
Quick question. So he's talking about these gangs, basically clubs or brotherhoods, fraternities, if you will, frats in high school. Was that an experience that anyone here is aware of? Did you have anything like that in your school? I mean,
no,
there were
I've heard of
cliques.
that,
there were cliques, but there weren't actual, like, are you with us or with them? It sounds like he's talking about the Sharks and the Jets for crying out loud.
Yeah, it sounds like it kind of was in that area that he grew up in, but they just framed it as frats. So we're not gangs, we're frats, we've got it was kind of a workaround thing.
I went to such a small school that I missed all the high school movies I watched in high school. I was like, that must be cool. Like, I remember seeing Fast Times at Ridgemont High and just being blown away because I went to a school, my senior class had 12 people.
Gosh.
You didn't get away with anything. You didn't no one ever cut a class.
Right.
How could you? You would be immediately, it was obvious someone wasn't there. And it was like, where's Mr. Maddox today? Oh, he's sick. Okay, end of story, or whatever. There was nobody could get away with a thing. Everybody just did what they were supposed to do in such a small environment. And I would go see a movie like Fast Times or like anything about a large high school and just think, I don't know if I could make it a day in that environment.
Right.
I was just coming from such a different place.
Right. It was a complete. I came from the same environment you did. I remember my senior year feeling very militant and had all of those activist juices running, and I lobbied and became just a huge pain in the ass for an open campus at Woolsey High School, a town of, there were 14 kids in my class, 15 maybe, I think, and my sister's class right behind me had 8. And I remember thinking, we want open campus. We don't want to have to stay in this high school between classes and that sort of thing. And so finally they capitulated and said, all right, Zepp, if you shut up, you guys can leave and go do something between classes.
Right.
Woolsey.
25
miles from the nearest other town, and we just realized we gained nothing. We were standing around the parking lot going, there's literally no place to go, so we just wandered back in the school.
The freshmen come in, first day of school. I'll tell you the story of a guy named Brian Zepp.
Yeah, but you're right. I'd watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High or Porky's or something like that and go, wow, man, that's a different
Che
planet.
Guevara of Woolsey High, Brian Zepp. Hey, Candace, real quick, we got a call?
Jeff from Golden Valley.
Jeff, what's up, brother?
Hey, I heard you guys talking about, different crowds and stuff in high school.
Right.
I graduated in 77, and we had Jocks and the Freaks. That's what we had.
The Jocks and the Freaks. Yeah.
And you were in which camp, sir?
Both.
Oh. You were like Randall Pink Floyd and Dazed and Confused. You went both ways.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I was a 3-letterman, and I like to smoke marijuana. So
yeah.
Well, that's 70. What did you say? 1977. That was the rules.
Yep.
You had to.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
That's why he's one of ours. Thanks, Jeff.
That's right.
blended.
We appreciate it. We
Much
got to hop,
blended.
Jeff. Thanks for the call. This version of the KQ Morning Show with yours truly started on January 9th, and today we summited Everest. My favorite moment so far was when we had a caller who called in to say he had served time in prison with a serial killer, and in the midst of that call, Tony said, "So, if you don't mind my asking, what were you in for?" And the man collected his thoughts, calmly said, "Murder."
Yeah.
And the best part was when Tony said something and our caller didn't hear him. He said, "Sorry, what was that, Tone?"
Oh, yeah, his buddy.
Yes,
Tony's
my buddy.
Yeah.
Just friends.
Well,
And by the way, no, but sincerely, because that says exactly how people feel about you on the show. Hey, well, I'm sorry, what was that, Tone? Like good old friends.
yeah, I loved it. It summed up the camaraderie and the closeness that people feel.
And this guy was dead serious, and he told us a story of why he went to prison, and it makes perfect sense. And he said he's been out since '96. He's been a completely
Model
hasn't run
citizen.
afoul
Yeah.
of the law since.
Yeah.
It was an incredible moment. and it just, boy, it's really it's resonant within me, if you will. Like just the amount of the feedback we get and the communication and the conversations we have with our listeners. Sometimes it can be really, really mind-boggling and unexpected and awesome. And today was one of those days.
You're right.
It's always authentic, isn't it? With the KQ listeners, you get
100%.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, really, really,
Genuine.
really good. I cannot forget to mention that Guns N' Roses is back on the road for their world tour. We would love to send you to see them in San Diego. One winner will score a trip for two, including round-trip air, a 2-night hotel stay, 2 premium tickets to the gig in San Diego on October 1st. Plus, you will get the Paradise City VIP Lounge package. That includes limited edition Guns N' Roses merch, an official tour laminate, and entry to the VIP Lounge before the show. Here's what you got to do. Text the national keyword Paradise to 95819. That's Paradise to 95819 right now for your chance to win.
You guys want a little more macabre from KQ listeners this morning?
I'll take all the macabre you got.
All right, here's one more. Jennifer, on our Facebook post this morning, we started the morning talking about odd things you catch on your security camera. The stories early this morning. The cute, the sweetest story in the world of the kid running into someone's garage and hugging it, just to hug a dog.
Yeah.
And then we had the weird, naked, frolicking witches out there somewhere in Canada that are eating dead deer. How about this one from Jennifer on our Facebook page? Last year we caught on our cameras the guy who shot 5 people and killed 3 fleeing from the scene.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, got that on the, hey kids, gather around. Look what we have here in the home movies.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, but one of my favorites, this is just fun. This one, Paul watched a delivery driver struggle with a large, apparently heavy box as he walked across the lawn to my front door. He sat down at one point, checked the label on his clipboard as his shoulders sagged. You could hear him say, "You got to be effing kidding me." And then picked up the box and proceeded to carry it back across my front yard. He was at the wrong place.
Wow. That, the story of seeing the guy committing the crime, that reminded me. This isn't security cameras, but this is old home movie Super 8 stuff. This story was out 10 years ago, but I remember it was as things were first viral stories, but it was an absolutely true story. A couple got married. They were from, I believe, New York. And as early in the relationship, or no, it was right after they got engaged. The families were all meeting. They were all getting together, and it was a big deal. Like, oh my gosh, they're in love. They're going to get married. And they started comparing childhood stories. And they came across the fact that the two families who lived 100 miles apart had both gone to Disney World the same summer when they were kids, and they pulled out home movies, and they were realizing it was the same days, and they were in the background of each other's home movies.
Amazing.
Whoa.
How about that? You're 9, and the girl you're about to marry is that girl over there at the teacup line that you've seen in your home movies for years.
Nuts.
And it was both ways. The girls' family home movies and the guys, they both were in each other's background of their home movies.
That's
Isn't
crazy.
that the crazy? Or maybe it was just photos, but they both had record of having been there at the same time. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, that's
so cool.
Crazy coincidence there,
And then, but as far as I know, no gunfire and no naked people eating animals in those videos.
No, we have Eric here on the Facebook page on their security camera. Said their former neighbors who were a nightmare had a teenage daughter that had a bunny costume. It was June, and she was walking up and down the street. Here's the weird part. Not too long after that, she was dancing in their driveway with a dead rabbit.
Okay.
Don't judge.
No. I mean, let's just get that girl some help and be thankful that we had the footage.
Yeah, former neighbors there, though.
Speaking of thankful, by the way, did you see this the other day about Raheem Morris? He's the defensive coordinator for the L.A. Rams.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible story. He and his wife, Nicole, are in Vegas. They're at the swimming pool at the Encore, and they see some drama. A 3-year-old boy was pulled out of the pool. He'd gone unconscious underwater, and his heart had stopped, and the lifeguard started doing CPR. And Raheem Morris, player in the league for years, one of those names, everybody just has heard about him. He's now a coach. He jumped up and went and found the AED, the automatic external defibrillator, and brought that over and used and literally got the kid's heart beating again.
Wow.
And so, it was like, oh my gosh, you did this. He had just the week before the Rams mandatory CPR and AED training course.
No, that's when to do it.
He just learned how to use that stuff a week earlier because the Rams insisted that everybody in the facility knows how to use that equipment. And he saved a 3-year-old kid's life.
Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah, outstanding indeed.
The Buffalo Bills player, I'm sorry, Denny Hamlin.
Hamlin, sure. Sounds like the kid whose heart stopped.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I bet a lot of that training was mandatory as a result of that, and look what happened. Someone's life saved.
I'm sure that's exactly what it is. That's a good story to bounce on. Now it's time to look back. How about a history lesson, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, yeah. June 8th, 1979, the Utah Jazz were born. They moved from New Orleans. The NBA said, yes, you can do it. And to everyone's chagrin, the Jazz owners said, we're not going to change the name of the team. We're going to go to Utah, where Jazz has never been and is actually unable to thrive. There's not enough air for Jazz to live in the state of Utah. But they said, no, we're keeping the team name. And Lakers fans were like, oh, thank God, we're no longer the dumbest named team in the league. Minneapolis Lakers makes perfect sense. Los Angeles Lakers, stop. There's a reservoir and there's a cement river. There's no lakes in L.A. There's Silver Lake, I guess. But anyway, so the Utah Jazz kept that name. And so now, that's 1979. We're coming up on, that's 40-plus years or something of people going, why are they called the Jazz? And it's just because the owner said, no, I like the name. On this day in 2005, Alex Rodriguez became the youngest player to reach 400 career home runs. 2 years earlier to the day, he was the youngest player to ever be designated douchebag for life by yours truly, Steve Gorman. I just can't stand A-Rod. I never did. He always just bugged me, man. That's like he is just aluminum foil on the fillings.
And he was great in Seattle. And then all of a sudden, it was like Barry Bonds was phenomenal in Pittsburgh. I mean, he was likable anyway. And then, Barry went out west and Alex went out east and they D-bags.
That's what happens.
The KQ Morning Show, 92 KQRS.